Today, I would like to welcome Jan Trewartha to the Surgery and Therapy Summit. Today, I'm going to be finding out more about Jan. Welcome, Jan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Robyn. Thank you. It's been so lovely of you to invite me.
I first came across your book when I was searching on Amazon, and I was delighted to find the book that seemed to encompass everything that I'm trying to learn so much more about. And it was even more wonderful to me that you were so receptive when I emailed you, and we've got to know each other. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Jan, tell us a little bit about your career and your journey and how you have got to be where you are today.
Okay. Well, I started, gosh, it feels like another lifetime. I started as a state registered nurse, trained in the British Army. And then I left and went into the NHS for a few years. And then I left. I decided to have a change of career for a while. I worked on a skiing magazine, and I worked there for 3 or 4 years. And then I went traveling to Australia and New Zealand and all sorts of places. And yeah, when I was in New Zealand, I was at the Commonwealth Games and I was learning to massage. I did a 6-week massage course and they wanted volunteers for the Commonwealth Games. And so I volunteered and I learned an awful lot. I really learned an awful lot. But then I was still going to come back and do something like teaching English or something like that. I really hadn't decided. It was a bit of a crossroads in my life. And I came back and I decided to carry on with the massage and do some professional training. And that was the beginning. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Nothing is a coincidence in life. It's amazing how every step we take leads us to our ultimate path.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that you were learning from a blind massage therapist.
Oh, yes. Well, I wasn't training with him, but when I was traveling around Australia, I went to one of these huge festivals, as you do, and in the middle of all of this, or on the edge of it, there was this really quiet place within a ring of blue gum trees, and it was a healing space. And this guy gave me a massage, and I thought this was the best thing ever. I'd never had a massage in my life. I thought this was wonderful. So when I came down from my high, I sought him out, and I asked him if he would teach me, and he was half blind, and he said, "Yes, I'll teach you." And we grabbed somebody. I said, "Would you like a massage?" So this guy just lay down, and the way he taught me was just to say, "Okay, put your hands above his back. Now close your eyes and just put your hands down where they feel that they need to go." I thought that sounded a bit strange, but okay. So I dropped my hands down and moved them around a bit. I thought, here. And he said, "Yes, that's great, wonderful." And then he started showing me how to move my hands. There was no particular pattern, no rote techniques, nothing like that. It was just following the body. And that, I think, really, subconsciously, that's informed me all my career, really. And now I'm very much, my mantra is follow the tissue, and the tissue will always go home. So that's where I work from now. Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. I feel that as well. Do you feel healing energy in your hands when you're touching somebody?
I think we all do, don't we?
Do you feel that like heat in your hands? I
Yeah.
don't think we all do. Definitely
Oh,
not. I think I think it's a gift. And sometimes my husband often says this to me. He says, yes, but it's your hands on that person. There is something intuitive and special about the energy that comes through your hands when you touch that heals. Never mind all the techniques and modalities that you are and your knowledge and your experience. There's always something special about actually being touched, and you will know immediately when you have somebody that touches you with skill and with that special gift, and versus somebody who doesn't have it. So,
well, I think in the massage schools, people are taught how to do massage, and sadly, some of them will not be taught how to tune in to the client, and I think also, yes, I've always had that touch that people have liked, but I suppose what I'm saying is I think everybody can develop it, but they need to do a bit of maybe a bit of work on themselves, a bit of clearing their own energy, clearing their stuff, to let it magnify, to let it be the best it can be. But if you're just touching the person with no caring, or just to make money, or
Yes.
just as part of a routine because you've got to do this routine, then that wouldn't be probably as good as if somebody is touching you with intention. And it's the intention and the attention to what you're doing. I feel that some people are better at that, perhaps. Yeah.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And so then after that, what kind of brought you to working with scars and meeting Sharon Wheeler?
Well, I started with massage, as I said. Then I did aromatherapy, a diploma, because you had to, because this was, where were we now? Early 90s. So everybody was into aromatherapy, so you had to do aromatherapy. So I did that, which was lovely, but it never really grabbed my attention. And then I met somebody who taught me something called biomobility, which is a positional release for fascia. But we weren't talking about fascia. I mean, the word fascia was never mentioned, but it worked. It was fantastic. And that had developed from orthobionomy, which you hear a lot about in Germany, not a great deal in the UK. I don't know about where you are, but. And then from biomobility, I developed that on and used that. And I was using, then I trained as an energy field therapist. So I was combining everything I did. So I was doing quite interesting work. Well, I have a scar, and I went to the International Fascia Research Congress in Vancouver, and my scar was beginning for the first time to cause me some problems. So while I was there, I was asking people, do you know anybody who works with scars? And And somebody said, well, Sharon Wheeler, she's just the guru in North America and Canada. I said, fantastic. I'm in Vancouver. I knew I'd come for a reason. I need to meet Sharon. How do I find Sharon? Oh, she lives in Seattle. Great. Where's Seattle? Oh, it's over the water. Okay, fantastic. But she's over there. oh, oh. So this very quiet woman was sitting in the corridor having her lunch peacefully, and I just descended on her saying, "Hi, I'm Jan. Can you fix me the scar?" And she looked up and she goes, "Oh, well, I guess." So there was nowhere else to go. So the next day, I went to her hotel room. The bed was made, and I lay on the bed and had my scar worked on, and I was so blown away, Robyn. I was blown away. And I sent a picture to my mum. And she was, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I thought, right, Sharon, you're going to have to teach me. She said, oh no, I really only teach Wolfers and structural integrators. And I said, well, no, but you need to teach me. And I just nagged her and nagged her and nagged her. And she taught me. I flew over a few months later and did the ScarWork course. And I was just so amazed by it. I then went back and did her bonework course, her structural integration of the cranium course. And then following year, I ran the British Fascia Symposium for the first time, because that was my baby, and I now run the Fascia Hub, which also incorporates the British Fascia Symposium. And she was our only post-event course, and we only had 9 people because nobody knew. Nobody knew about this, and we had trouble getting insurance. Everything was all done very late, but we couldn't get things sorted. But we got things sorted. We got 9 people, and that was the last time we had a half-empty class. Yeah, ever since then it's been full. Ever since then it was full. And then she accredited me as a tutor. So I've been teaching ever since then. Yeah. So it's all very exciting.
It's such an incredible mentor that you've had, because and then who would have known on that first day when she looked up at you that you would both co-author a book?
Oh, who knew? It was amazing.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
her work. Oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
I was just saying her work, Sharon's work transformed my work. I've been working light touch for years. I was never one to just go really deep on massage, but when I understood that you could go even lighter and transform tissue under your hand, and that doesn't have to be on a scar. You can do feather light sweeping, the technique I'm going to show you at the end of my talk, and it can transform tissue anywhere in the body. So if you've got one of my colleagues, Carol, has used it. I think it was a frozen shoulder. Yeah, frozen shoulder. I think she used it on, and that worked wonderfully. It really, really helped. So she was using ScarWork techniques on non-scarred areas. So it's the approach that is really good. It's the light touch, which then works via mechanotransduction down to create biochemical changes in the cell. That's one of the ways we know it works. There's not a lot of research done on it yet, but it works. Yeah.
We don't always have to have the research. I've heard Dr. Donald Lalonde saying, if you see it once, twice, three times, and even 4 times, and it works. You don't have to have the research. And you know, and a lot of the research is now becoming retrospective. So we've worked intuitively, and now it's catching up, and we're able to back up what we're doing. But I'm so pleased to hear that the touch is becoming so incredibly light, because physical therapists and hand therapists have been quite aggressive. Therapy can be quite aggressive, particularly over the last 10 or 20 years. I mean, I remember being trained to do retrograde massage on an edematous limb. Why would we ever have applied such deep pressure and damaged the lymphatic system? And, you are working with multiple systems, particularly the lymphatic system and the skin and the sensory system and the cutaneous nerves that are terminating in the skin, which is obviously connected to the whole peripheral nervous system. So light touch is where it's at. Tell me a little bit more about how you would be working with your fingers, without going into detail, because I know you're going to be giving us a lecture. But how many techniques are there?
With Sharon Wheeler's work, we start by teaching an initial 20 or so techniques.
Okay.
And because you've got to give you've got to give the students something to work with, you've got to give them something to start with and to introduce it and to be able to show people how it works, and to enable them to see the tissue changing.
Yeah.
And once they see tissue changing, they go, oh my goodness, and then, oh, let me try this and let me try this. And then they get into it and they've got different things to try. But what we're really teaching is an approach. And that is an approach that says, right, this is not just a C-scar. Or let's just choose a different one. I'm always talking about cesarean scars. This is not just an open heart surgery. Okay, scar. This is somebody who's usually a man, isn't it? Who comes in with all his stresses and anxieties and everything that brought him, and his maybe diet, low mobility, whatever it is that brought him to the state that he needed open heart surgery. So you've got the person, and every person will be different, and every scar will be different. And you can work on that scar and say he's had something else. Maybe he's had, back to frozen shoulders, maybe he's had a frozen shoulder in his life with all this stressful work he's been doing. Now that scar, we found, will somehow feed into the degraded tissue from the frozen shoulder as well. They will feed in together under the skin. So one will feel connected to the other. When you use your hands and you're touching the scar and different parts of the tissue around and you're assessing, you'll feel that connection. Yeah. And so we're working with featherlight sweeping, which is the one I'm going to demonstrate to you. We're working with other techniques to connect the edges of the scar, draw them together, and start healing from the top, start matching it all from the top. And then a bit like a upside down abscess, I always think. In nursing, you always heal the abscesses from the bottom, otherwise you get a gap at the top, because it will heal over the top, the skin will heal together. But if you haven't healed it up from the bottom, it won't heal all the way up. That's why you start healing from the bottom. We used to use tape soaked in oil, but of course it'll be different now, all these years later. But you allow the granulation to build up from the bottom, and then you heal it, and then you eventually allow the skin to heal over. Otherwise, you've got a hole.
Yes.
With a scar, once you've managed to get the tissue that has been slumped to one side together towards the center, and even though it's been sewn, sutured, glued, whatever, it still holds the memory. So when I say the tissue is slumped, it really is. It can be like a nice, I don't know if you call it a counterpane, but say a blanket on the top, and underneath everything's rumpled.
Yeah.
You know, everything looks smooth on the top, but it's all rumpled underneath. And
Mm.
so we're able to draw that tissue from underneath towards the center of the scar, because you need all the tissue in the different depths of the scar as central as possible in with the scar, and then you match it all up and you connect it together. Yes, I know it's been sutured underneath. It may not have all been sutured. Some of those depths of fascia won't have been stuck together, sutured together properly. That's the way it goes. But on the whole, it will have been sutured together, and yet it might sort of, might feel a bit like that and not like that. Okay. So if I do that and pull, I've got a nice resilience. If I do that, yes, it's good, but it's not the same. So, and it depends on the suturing, and it depends on how well it's done, and it also depends on the tone of the body. It depends on a lot of different factors, whether it's an emergency, whether it's an elective surgery, lots of different things come into play. So we're matching it, we're connecting, so that if this is the scar on top, we want to create that underneath, so everything is more connected and resilient. Yeah. Now that, by doing that, changes everything in the body, because you know, obviously with the fascia, which is the structure, the connective tissue that connects everything in the body, and it sheaths the lungs with the pleura, it sheaths the heart, the cardium, you know, it sheaths the bones, the periosteum, goes right down to cellular level. So just like a tablecloth, if you grip a bit of a flat tablecloth, it'll start creating radiating folds. Yeah. If you put another grip in a different place, the folds from each grip will intersect and cause more complicated folds. If you've got a third grip from the other side, it's really getting complicated and almost torqued in the middle. Yeah. And you imagine that three-dimensionally through the fascia, and then you've got the effects of different scars, injuries, and maybe repetitive strain injuries, that sort of thing, throughout the body. So when you start to let go of the tension in the scar, and you can't get rid of a scar, but you can manage to soften it and integrate it more into the fascial matrix, then that cascades through the tissues like a sort of three-dimensional domino effect, and things start to let go and release in other parts of the body. So you're getting a global decompression.
Yeah.
And it happens differently with everybody, and different, you know.
And how many sessions would it take for you to feel it give?
Well, there's the answer. There's the questions.
Feel it.
It depends on the person. It depends on the person. It depends on the scar. It depends on the skill of the suturing. It depends on the skill of the therapist. Yeah. It depends on a lot of different things. It depends on the genetic and epigenetic factors. It could be anything. But I suppose if somebody came to me with a cesarean scar, I'd say I would want 1.5 hour session with them per cut. So if they've got 3 cesareans, I'd need at least 3 sessions, and then maybe another one, because I also deal with the compensation factors, the patterns that have developed over the years. Yeah. And then there's
so bad.
That's not bad. I mean, I probably on a severe surgery, maybe 4 to 6 1.5 hour sessions.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the kind of, you know, once it's done, it's done. And sometimes it reverts. That's simply because we haven't finished it. That's all. Mostly it just holds. It holds. And once it's done, it's done. If people are going to carry on, you know, if somebody's got a cesarean scar and they've also carried a baby on their hip, the right hip, for example, and then the next baby, and then the next baby, then they are obviously, what happens with the fascia is it lays down collagen along the lines of force, and therefore your line of force is the way you've been holding the baby, so the fascia will adapt to hold the baby. Yeah, it will adapt your hip, and that degraded tissue will then feed into the cesarean. That happens, it can take a bit longer because you've got to rebalance the whole body and train them out of, say, if you ever have another baby, you do not hold that baby on, you know, get a little in front, get a little
absolutely. Yeah. We all do it because, you know, we do it on a non-dominant side, so we can free up our dominant hand to do other things with, you know, and have the manipulation ability.
Yes, it's not easy when you're a mum, because you've got the baby and you've got to stir the pot and you've got to do something else, but at least swap hips If nothing else,
Absolutely, swap
if
the
nothing
hip.
else, just swap the hip.
And
Yeah.
then I suppose for us as hand therapists, we need to start asking the right questions when we assess our patient. And one of the questions would be, how many children have you had? Which hip did you hold your baby on? And did you have a knee injury, an ankle injury? And start bringing this into the picture, because those injuries are going to translate to the upper limb. And so we almost need to work backwards to find the source of the problem, where that fascia was, laying down the collagen and becoming more strained and starting to change the skeleton and the muscles around it. And I suppose then the next step for us, and this is why we need to sign up for your course, is how to actually sometimes abandon that part of the limb and go and try and resolve what's happening elsewhere in the body, and then coming back or seeing if it just frees up.
Well, from my point of view, you can't rebalance anybody if you've got scarring, especially major scarring. You can have a pretty good go if it's minor scarring, but even minor scars, like a little scar on the chin that so many kids have from falling over, even that can and will affect, the neck, the shoulders,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would personally, I work on the scars before I do anything else. If somebody comes into me in extreme back pain, yes, and I think, okay, well, they've got a cesarean, or they've had laminectomies, or they've had epidurals, with their permission, I'll do a little bit of work on the scar, but they're there to get the pain relieved. So I'll relieve the pain, but I'll tell them this cannot be permanent relief, because, and this is why, and I just explain the tablecloth thing. They all get the tablecloth analogy.
Yes, yeah.
So I explain that, and I say, if you're looking for more permanent relief, you need to have the scars worked on. So.
Well, that's it. We treat a lot of people who are in pain. And very often when you go to the other parts of the body, you absolutely resolve the pain. And so many patients are taken down a rabbit hole with many, investigations and different immobilization techniques or therapeutic techniques in an attempt to resolve pain. But actually, the way that the body works and the way fascia works and the way the whole body is integrated and the way you're integrating with your ScarWork, we can resolve it a whole lot more holistically.
Yeah, of course.
Very
Yes.
exciting. And just with light touch. We use kinesio tape, which is, only has like a 10% stretch. So it's very, very gentle. And we often use that to stretch that skin or shift the skin to release nervous tension. But you find with your technique, you don't need anything that to put on the patient for them to go away with. What you do with your hands is enough until they come back.
Yeah, I don't need to give them oils and creams and potions and lotions. And I just work with my hands. And if you become skilled enough with Sharon Wheeler's ScarWork, you can do an awful lot. An awful lot. Yeah.
That's amazing. Just one more thing I want to talk to you about in terms of scars, because it's something that I used, 20 years ago, was cupping. And then I abandoned it. It didn't feel intuitively right to me, but I have kind of gone back to cupping. What are your thoughts on that? And I know that you're not obviously trained in cupping, but just from what you would think we're trying to do, how different is it to what you're doing? Because with a suction, you're just lifting that scar in an attempt to mobilize the tissue and the lymphatic system.
Okay.
Are we just damaging it, or how's it different? What's the philosophy?
Well, I've never seen cupping on scars, Robyn. There's certain scars that are too fragile for that, I would imagine. I find that with the ScarWork, once I've worked on the body, I find that the attachment will just peel off mostly on its own.
No.
I don't have to force anything. I just work with it, and I follow the tissue, and I just say, oh, do you want to go there? Do you want to go there? Do you want to go? Oh, there it goes. And when you feel that peeling off, like a kidney scarf peeling off a rib, it's the most amazing feeling. I used to call it shearing, but that's too aggressive for what it is. It's like it's just you've put it in the place it needs to be, and you've helped it to go where it needs to be, and it goes, oh, I can let go of that now. I'm all great.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah,
I look forward
it
to
is.
being able
It
to.
is. Sharon's work is quite amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your book. What is in your book?
Well, it's called Scars, Adhesions, and the Biotensegral Body, which I know really rolls off the tongue. So we're looking at biotensegrity, and biotensegrity is the new biomechanics, as you'll know, expounded by Dr. Stephen Levin. And John Sharkey, who's on the panel, is also an expert. He is an expert in biotensegrity, and he has written in my book. When I started the book, I didn't feel confident enough to write about biotensegrity. I know an awful lot more all these years down the line, but there are 4 experts who've written in the book about the biotensegrity aspect. And this is looking at the body as a tension compression system, not a series of levers. It's a bit more complicated than that, but
And you
so what
mentioned,
sorry, I just, if I can just finish, thank you, Robyn. It just to explain that because it looks at full body continuity and everything being the body being an organic system that is self-organizing, that is fully connected with itself, and one part affects another part. So what you do to one part affects another part. So
okay.
therefore, when I'm talking about, when we're talking, say, about a scar in an open heart surgery affecting the hand, yes, of course it will. Yes, of course it will, naturally. So it's looking at that, and I've got these 4 different people plus 4 other people who also write not chapters, but they contribute to the book. And so we've got an awful lot of knowledge in there about scars, about the biotentegral body, and how it responds to scar work, and how it responds to touch and light touch. Yeah, it's quite an interesting book. We're getting 5 stars all the way, which is really nice. Reviews, lovely
Yeah,
on Amazon.
I did see that. I cannot wait. I think it would be really nice if they've got some time, they can get the book and start reading so that it'll make so much more sense to them when you give us your lecture at the summit. And tell us a little bit about the Fascia Hub, because that's a community that you've created.
Yes, it's a community education forum. I started because of the British Fascia Symposium, which I started basically because it seemed to me that people in the UK didn't really know an awful lot about fascia, and that was back only in 2012 when I started conceiving the idea, having got the idea from the Fascia Research Congress, but thinking more therapist-led or practice-led than research-led would be more my interest to do, being a practitioner. So the BFS was going really well. And then, of course, in May 20, when it was due to be in Birmingham in the UK, we started going into lockdown in March. So I had to think about that. And people wanted me to just delay it a year and do it in person. Well, thank goodness I didn't, because it wouldn't have happened then either. And so we went online. And I knew nothing about going online, but luckily I knew people who did. And so we went online, we did a 5-day extravaganza, 9 hours a day broadcasting, my goodness. But what we got from that, Robyn, was the understanding that there was such a need around the world for this kind of information, because all the people we found who joined us online who said, I could never have got to Birmingham, to the UK for a weekend. This is fabulous. And so then the Fascia Hub, as I was sitting relaxing in my chair for the whole summer afterwards, I conceived the idea of the Fascia Hub and pulled that together. And so it's a community education forum, and you can be a member and get loads of benefits and perks, but you don't have to be a member. You can you still get lots of information. You get told about all the events. Our next one is the Fascial Breath, which will be in October. So that's exciting. And we're going to be moving into hybrid events soon. So live with live stream. So that'll be really interesting. We're adapting to the technology and the times, and it's quite amazing.
It is, I also had reservations about the summit being online, but I wanted to eliminate geographical restrictions and time zones and make it available and have that. Now, you just mentioned something, probably the last thing I'm going to ask you. You talk about breath. And can you tell me a little bit more? Because I have been noticing that people are doing a lot more breath work when working with scars.
With breathwork, with working with scars, yes. Well, in what capacity in your case?
Yeah, so just, people generally are shallow breathers. We
Yeah.
kind of we're not breathing deeply. And when you do work with patients, obviously that they're coming in, they're highly strung, they've got a lot of stress, they've had a whole series of events happening to them in the morning. And, so sometimes it's actually doing a bit of work on the trunk, being able to get them to do deep breathing, placing your hands on the trunk, working with the skin, shifting the skin to start releasing that fascia. I don't know a lot about it. It's just from a little bit of what I've read and heard. Is this something that you're referring to, or is it something totally different?
No, this is the fascial breath. This is not specifically about scarring, although
Okay.
I'm with you in that when somebody is tense and they need to have anything done, whether it's scarring or another scar work or another modality, but certainly to get them to breathe and relax and start working with their rib cage and diaphragm is a great way to help them bring them down.
Yeah.
And they could also do with breath training. Coincidentally, I'm just reading well, not coincidentally, I'm running the fascial breath, so I'm reading about it. There's a brilliant book called Breath, by James Nestor, that
Okay.
is out at the moment, and that is fantastic. And he talks a lot about open mouth breathing and closed mouth breathing. And open mouth breathing, he says he's done all the research, from the West and the scientific stuff, and to the East and the yoga and all the different trainings that come from around the world. It's a fabulous book. And he talks about how the soft tissue at the back of the mouth, when you mouth breathe, it doesn't tone, it becomes flabby, and that fills the mouth more, and then can lead to the snoring and well, actually it's just the complete change in your face and even in your skeletal structure.
Wow.
It's quite phenomenal.
That is
So
interesting.
whereas nose breathing tones the soft tissue. So obviously we're talking fascia here as well. And so I'm looking at that at the moment. It's quite fascinating. Yes.
That
So
is.
we've got yeah, we're getting the speakers lined up, and I'm looking forward to this. It's going to explore from the science down to the movement side, the self-healing, and how to inform your clients, and talk about nitric oxide, and all sorts of different interesting things. I'm just putting that out as a teaser. I'm not going into that now. Too much to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. Well, it all sounds fantastic. We are so honored to have you be a presenter at the summit. And
I'm
to
honoured to be with you. Thank you.
and you've also sponsored a book. So one like
Books.
it's two books. Yes, it's two books.
Two
So
books and one of my courses, but my courses are in the UK at the moment. But I have no objection to coming to any part of the world to teach.
oh, I think
If somebody helps me organising,
in South Africa is calling you.
that would be lovely.
Yeah, that's so two lucky people will get that, and obviously to win your course would be incredible. So thank you very much for your time and for just giving us a little bit more insight, and also, I suppose, guiding us to how we can prepare for your lecture, because the more we
Yes.
prepare, the more we'll get out of it.
Well, you could go to YouTube and look up Sharon Wheeler, and you could look up Body in Harmony Training as well, Body in Harmony Training and Sharon Wheeler. And we've both got videos and little bits about ScarWork that would be interesting. And
Oh,
Sharon's got a lot on there. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
she is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you very soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me, Robyn.
Pleasure.